Happy to see you. Hi. Very grateful for everybody who's watching the recordings of these live sessions. It's wonderful. Not everybody can be live, right? And when you're live, it's wonderful because you can interact, but you can also comment after you've watched the recordings or while you're watching it. Comment your experiences, ask any questions you want. I see so many dear people here already. Hey, Robert, wonderful to see you. Amazing. And I haven't seen so many people in so long, so this is awesome. And you can comment whatever it is that you want to comment. You can ask me questions. I would love to answer them and contribute to all of this, right? Share this with people you know and love. Please like this video. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, please like it because it really helps us spread the word. And if you know people who are interested in this kind of content that you know will benefit from all of this, share it with them. You know, if one person who is in our channel, who subscribes to the YouTube channel or who's following us on Instagram, if these people bring one person, we can grow our community and share the same vocabulary. You can talk about these things with the people you love. There's so much in the internet, right? Everybody's trying to get our attention. But diving into your soul is really something that a lot of people like doing, a lot of people are afraid of doing. So if you know people who have this affinity with you, who are willing to dive into their souls and know themselves and expand their inner world, I know because I have a lot of students in our course in human nature, a lot of people who are in our crystals and chakras meditation series. So these people are out there. So I think we need to get to know each other better. And the internet is a great way to do that. So please spread the word. Please like this video. Please comment your experience. Please ask your questions. Share it with the people you know and love. And encourage them to like our YouTube channel and to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all the social media. All right? So the first thing that I want to start talking about tonight, this is a session, a live session about self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love, right? And there are a lot of people who don't really understand the difference. So I want to ask you, if you think about these three forces, do they mean the same thing to you? Or do they mean very different things? How do they interact with each other? How does self-worth help self-esteem and vice versa? How does self-love play a role in all of that? Because we did talk about love for others, right? Love in our relationships in our last live session. So if you haven't seen it, it's recorded, it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram as well, and IGTV. So when we talk about love regarding other people, love in our relationship with others, it's one thing. But when we talk about self-love, it's a whole different story. And in my experience, I see so many people who love others much more than they love themselves. And there are a lot of people who love themselves much more than they love others, but they don't usually cross my path because they're not usually interested in soul healing and consciousness expansion, right? The selfish people rarely come to soul healing sessions and want to improve. It's a very rare thing. Usually people tell them that they're selfish and that they need to do something about it. So we have a comment here. Hi, Jennifer. Great to see you. Love it. Cardinal Method practitioners are here. Robert saying, for me, self-love is the root for the love for others. Yes, I agree. If it's balanced, right? When we talk about self-love in the Cardinal Method, when we talk about love in general, self-love is the root of love for others, and loving others is the root of love for humanity. So it's a contradiction when people say that they love humanity. I've seen this so much in my life. It's kind of a weird contradiction, because I was from the social sciences, political science, political theory realm, the academic world. So I did meet a lot of people from, for example, human rights, right? And in my second career, which started 10 years ago with energy healing, a lot of spiritual people who love humanity, who love to heal the earth, but don't talk to their parents, but who talk bad about their siblings, who have a bad relationship with their family, right? So, how can you say you love humanity and pursue human rights and love the planet, right? So, this is kind of a contradiction. Loving yourself is the root, as Robert said, to love others. You can't love others more than you love yourself. If you do, that is a needy thing. You're compensating for something. We talked about that in our last live session. You can watch the recording. I would love that. But tonight, we're going to talk about self love, but that is actually something that requires two steps before that, which are self esteem and self worth. So, actually, my opinion, this is based on my studies and my researches and what I have created as a system called the Cardinal Method of Life Connection, is that we need specific structure energies in order to expand in more subtle energies and subtle realms, right? So, one of the pillars of the cardinal method of life connection is the Hindu chakra system. And I think it helps us organize our minds. I think that when we understand things, we can change our attitudes and we can change our emotions because they make sense for us. So that's why I really am a fan of engaging our brain power to understand energy and to understand spirituality. Because when we do that, when we understand with a higher consciousness, we can really create changes. And that's when we change our mindset. And when we change our mindset, we change our lives. All right. Hi, Hui. Great to see you. So we have an intention. We have an intention to change, for example, but the intention is never enough. You also need to believe it's possible. That's usually where we get messed up. That's usually where we have to work on the most. It's the belief aspect. And then we have actions. But you can take action. You may have an intention and take action. But if you don't believe it's possible, and if you don't believe you're worthy, and we're talking about self-worth tonight, it really won't last. You won't be able to take action consistently. It will not be lasting change. You will episodically take action. It's going to be inconsistent because your beliefs are not aligned with your intent and your actions are going to wobble. So most of the things that we do with the cardinal method actually have to do with beliefs. That's one of the reasons why I decided to create courses, because people would come for energy healing sessions. We have a live session about that too. Why does energy healing work so well for some people and not for others? It has to do with self-worth. It has to do with their belief systems. Because even if you come to energy healing sessions, even if you pray, if you don't believe that shift is possible, it will not happen or it will not last. It's going to be very inconsistent. So bottom line here is, to change your life, you need an intent, a belief, and the right action. The belief part is your mindset that will start to create real change. And that has to do with your identity level. So what we're going to, in neuro-linguistic programming, that's, these are the words and the structure that they use. So if you want to change your life, if you want to become a happier person, if you want to fulfill your dreams, if you want to improve in areas that are not great, right? It could be your health. It could be your finances. It could be your relationships. It all boils down to your belief systems about yourself, your identity, your self-identity, and your sense of worth. So self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love are three very different things in the cardinal method. And we're going to talk about that tonight. We have someone, Robert said, he gave his opinion saying that self-love is a root for love for others. But what do you guys think is the difference between self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love? Do you have any idea? Have you thought about that before? I like it when we interact, because then we create something together, right? It's not just my monologue. I keep saying this. I don't want to be just in a monologue in our live sessions or our courses. So do you see a difference between self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love. Even if you're just watching the recording later, right now at this point of the live session, you can comment and just state your opinion. Because in the cardinal method, they're different. They have different vibrations. They have different levels of density, right? And they speak to our consciousness in a different way. And I will state this as a cardinal method developer, right? That self-worth is a prerequisite to self-esteem, which is a prerequisite to self-love. So we have some people answering here. So Robert's saying self-love is how one views oneself. I agree. But also self-worth and self-esteem, right? Who is saying he feels like there's a small difference, but we can't really pinpoint that. And it took me a while to see the difference. I thought they were kind of all the same. But when you work with energy healing, you see the vibrational frequencies of energy. You really get the training. And this is nothing, I don't want people to think this is mystical. If you have the right mindset and the right training, you can really grasp the density of the vibrational frequencies. So we have some more participation here. Let's just wait for. Things are kind of, it's a little difficult for me to see because they're one on top of the other. Self-worth is how one values oneself. So how you see yourself, how you value yourself, that makes sense. But I want to start diving a little bit into what self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love mean in the cardinal method, right? And the theory of the cardinal method. I told you guys the cardinal method is based in 4 pillars: the Hindu chakra system, family constellations, indigenous wisdom of the Americas, and the European thought systems about the soul, and specific theoretical concepts from European philosophy. So in the Hindu chakra system, we have a lot of chakras. Chakras are energy centers. They're types of consciousness that we have on our bodies. And we have 7 main chakras along our spine, okay, that represent levels of consciousness. So the first chakra is the root chakra. The second chakra is the sacral chakra. So the root chakra is where your coccyx is the last little bone of your spine. The sacral chakra is where your sacrum is, and it's 3-dimensional. So it's 4 fingers below your navel, the sacral chakra. The solar plexus is where your stomach resides. The heart chakra is where your heart is. The throat chakra, where your throat is. The third eye chakra here in your forehead, and the crown chakra is above your head. So the crown chakra and the root chakra create a donut shape. It's called a torus. So they're basically the same chakra. The other chakras are horizontal. So the third eye is in the front of your forehead and the back, right? The throat chakra, the back and the neck and the front of the neck. The heart is 3-dimensional too, where your heart is and your lungs behind you. The solar plexus where your stomach is and the vertebrae that correspond to that. The sacral chakra where your sacrum is and 3 fingers below your navel, and your root chakra where your coccyx is, which is a vertical position. And these centers of consciousness have very specific vibrations. And our emotional sense of self and our identity also travels up through the chakra system. So from the earth to the sky in an ascension movement, an ascending spiral, if you will. So self-worth in the cardinal method is in the sacral chakra. Okay, the sacral chakra is the center of abundance. It is the center of pleasure. It's the center of enjoying life. How much self-permission we give ourselves to enjoy life. And I believe self-worth is located there, in that center of consciousness. Self-esteem is a solar plexus energy. It travels up to your sense of self regarding your solar plexus, which is the center of personal power. So it's a little different. It's one thing in the sacral chakra is where we belong in the world. We feel like we need to belong. It's more dense and structural. The solar plexus they're all about our sense of individuality, but the solar plexus is about being who you are and not really feeling like you need to prove anything to anybody. It's not really relying on other people's opinions about you. It has, in my concept, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. Okay, I'm just here bringing you some ideas of my reflections. But it's not, the more self-esteem you have, the less you feel like you have to prove things to others. And self-love is the heart chakra, is, the word is self-explanatory, right? It's about loving yourself. It's a different density. It's about emotions. So the sacral chakra is more visceral, more primitive, more collective than the solar plexus. So self-worth, how you value yourself, has a lot to do with how much permission you give yourself to enjoy life and to be happy. And the sacral chakra is imbalanced by guilt. So if we feel guilty about something we've done in our childhood or in our teenage days, in our adult life, whenever, we immediately find ways to compensate for that with self-sabotaging and self-punishment. And that diminishes our sense of self-worth. And our sense of self-worth is going to be observed in a practical level, as how much you value yourself, right? In your relationships on all levels, romantic, friendships, and also with your professional life and your financial life. So one of the ways to really observe self-worth is, for example, how much people charge for what they do professionally. I see a lot of people undercharging because they have a limiting belief about the worth of what they offer to the world and about themselves, not just what they offer, their jobs, or what their talents, their whatever it is that they sell, but how much they think they're worth to belong. So often people with low self-worth levels will undercharge for their services, for example, or they may be doormats to oppressive people. I will give you a very concrete example. This is kind of a common story that I tend to hear. People are going, like two people meet, I don't know, in Tinder, wherever, and they go out and they set a date to go out on a date. Let's say they said, well, the guy said to the girl, just to be very, like a very staple situation, a very common situation that I've seen with a lot of my clients. Let's meet at 7 at wherever, okay, at X place. So the girl is there waiting. At 7, she's there. The guy doesn't show up until 9:30. If the girl waited 2.5 hours, what does this tell you about her sense of self-worth? And then was grateful for the guy showing up. He made her wait. So he didn't value her time, but more important than that, she doesn't value her time either. Is that making sense? When people complain about how much you charge for whatever service it is that you offer, the moment they complain about what you're charging, because they don't know you, they can't really value you, so you can't really blame them. But it's up to you not to negotiate your fees because you know how much you're worth. But if you immediately give a discount just because the person doesn't know you and has questioned how much you're worth, your services are worth, you already are coming from a place of low self-worth. Is this making sense? Let me know, those of you who are live. I know that we talk about, this is a dive into the soul. So we talk about deep stuff from the soul. We kind of get, oh my God, what is she saying? Let me digest this right before I manifest myself. But how does this resonate with you? Is this making sense? The self-worth piece. Is this making sense for you? Let's interact a little bit. Okay, so some people are saying yes, indeed, great, awesome. Very cool. And here on YouTube too, we have some people who are live, so you're digesting it all. So the sense of self-worth is beyond your individuality. It has a lot to do with how you position yourself in the world. It has to do with belonging. It's a sacral chakra energy. So, who is saying it's really scary sometimes when you're negotiating? It is for people who are intimidated by people who are very aggressive, right? So, for the people who are more heart centered, or who have had inner child issues, it's intimidating to negotiate. People who are afraid of selling themselves, right? Who don't have a lot of confidence. Confidence is a solar plexus issue. But it relies on self-worth before we talk about self-esteem and confidence, we need to talk about self-worth, which is on a deeper level. It's a sacral chakra energy, right? So who is saying the value of my work is a big challenge for me. I'm going to say something that was said to me too, because I wasn't used to charging for sessions to be in the market, right? Because I used to be a public official with a job and a salary, and everything was going for me. I had my retirement waiting for me in Brazil. It was a whole different career. It's different from being in the jungle, right? And offering your services to people who are in need of them, because if we're out there, people need us, right? Just be sure of that. And your people want to find you. And the right people will never question the value of whatever it is that you're selling and what you're charging for it, because they see the value and the worth of that. But whenever we have challenges about value, putting values, setting prices to whatever it is that we're selling, it's a self-worth story, and we need to work on our sacral chakra. So those of you who are cardinal method practitioners, I see a lot of you who are sacral chakra practices on ourselves. Okay, whenever we have that kind of dilemma that Hui is mentioning here, just work on your sacral chakra. Work with sacral chakra crystals, work with sacral chakra practices. Do the inner child practice, because self-worth relates to the sacral chakra, and anything below the solar plexus is below the heart chakra is a very, very connected to the inner child. So not really knowing your sense of worth has to do with the wounded inner child, because the thing is, self-worth is innate. We are priceless, right? We can't put a price on ourselves. And our worth is infinite. And the reason why it's difficult to put a price on what you sell sometimes, especially if it's a service that only you can deliver, is that it is priceless, and you are worth heaven. You are a child of God, right? It's a birthright to be valued. But when we weren't valued in childhood, it hurts our sense of self-worth. So childhood issues have everything to do with our sense of self-worth. So I really suggest and highly recommend that people do the inner child practice if they have self-worth issues. It's how much you value yourself, your sense of identity. And it's very much about comparing yourself to others. If you compare yourself to other people, of course, you need to know if you're in a professional level, looking at this from a professional point of view, you need to know what the market values, what the prices in the market. But don't put yourself down and don't lower your prices, because people won't value you as much as you're worth, and starting with yourself. Okay. So self-worth has to do with abundance. It has to do with your inner child. It has to do with your sacral chakra. It has to do with your levels of belonging and with your sense of identity. So you can start, one of the things that I suggest you start doing when it comes to self-worth is to start affirming, I am worthy of the best of life, for example. Start hypnotizing yourself with that kind of affirmation. If you struggle with self-worth issues, if you struggle, for example, with putting prices in your services and products, right? And when people question you, don't feel intimidated, because they don't set the tone of what you offer. You do it. You're the one who knows your worth, your value. You're the one who's in charge of teaching them, enlightening them about how much you're worth. They don't have the obligation to know firsthand, but it's your obligation to educate them. And when you're negotiating, don't back down just because you're attached to the outcome, because you don't want to sell to the wrong people. You don't want to sell to the people who don't value you. You want to sell to the people who are going to be so happy to buy from you, right? We're going to be so, so grateful that you're the one offering the services and they're happy to pay for it. That's the kind of person you want to find. Those are the kind of people you want to find. And the more you elevate your sense of self-worth, the more you find the right clients instead of finding nightmare clients who don't value your work, who don't value you. You can have the opposite of that. If you vibrate in a higher frequency, if you're connected to your higher self, you're going to attract people who are going to value you because you have a sense of self-worth in the first place. Remember, we're magnetic beings. So the more you connect to a self-worth identity, the more your magnetic field is going to emanate self-worth. And you're going to attract people who value you, not people who do not value you. If your sense of self-worth is low, you're going to attract people who do not value you. They're not the ones creating your life. You're the one creating your life. And you're attracting them because of the things you're emanating from within. Is that making sense? So self-worth in the Cardinal method is a sacral chakra energy. If we travel up, if our sense of self-worth is a little damaged, then we probably won't develop self-esteem and we won't develop self-love. That's how I see it. So the root of it all is your sense of self-worth. It's your identity, how worthy you feel. And you sabotage your sense of worthiness by feeling guilty and creating self-punishing mechanisms unconsciously, right? So the inner child practice really does help with that. If we travel up and think of self-esteem and self-love are natural consequences of self-worth, right? So self-esteem is a little different. It's a solar plexus energy because it really has to do with you asserting yourself out there. So a lot of people are trapped in the root chakra in fear, and I'm not even mentioning them here in this live session now. Maybe we'll create another live session about fear just for that subject. But if we start with self-worth, a lot of people are trapped in self-worth mode. They're trapped in the sacral chakra. So the energy doesn't travel up to the solar plexus for them to develop self-esteem. But self-esteem, notice how this is different. Self-esteem has to do with being yourself and not thinking like you have to prove anything to anybody. So a lot of people have a huge sense of self-worth. But if they feel like they have to create an image and that they have to prove things to others, if they're competing with other people, if they're always measuring themselves by what other people are doing in competition mode, they don't have self-esteem because they are held hostage by other people's opinions. So they may have a great sense of self-worth. They assert themselves. They think they're awesome. They have this is usually the case of narcissists, right? They think they're amazing, but they want to be better than others. If you want to compare yourself to other people and you want to be better than others, you have an ego problem. You are a slave to other people's opinions and a slave of the image you portray out there, and you don't have self-esteem at all. Because the people who have self-esteem, they don't care about other people's opinions. They do their thing. They know what they were born to do. They're focused and clear. The solar plexus is very much about clarity. It's what the Hindus call the lower intellectual mind. And this is not a bad thing, okay? The higher intellectual mind is here in the third eye, and it has to do with our mindset. But the lower intellectual mind of the solar plexus has to do with how we operate in the social world, how we communicate ourselves. It has to do with social skills. So a lot of people develop the higher mind and they're brilliant scientists, but they don't develop the solar plexus mind, the lower mind, and they have zero social skills. Is that making sense? So the solar plexus mind, the lower intellectual mind, gives you clarity about what you do in the world and what you offer, and it gives you a sense of self that gives you the awareness of personal power, that you know you're the only one who can deliver that specific service, offer that specific product, be that specific person, um, create that specific kind of, I don't know, synergy with people. Whatever it is that you do in the social world, however you contribute to the world around you, it doesn't have to be a, you know, necessarily in the professional field. You may be someone who helps in the family, you know, you hold the household together. It can be a lot of things. Your solar plexus is is the center of personal power in the body. It's the center of consciousness of your personal power. And when you have self-esteem, self-esteem to me, this is my opinion and how I see it in the Cardinal Method theory, the body of theory behind the Cardinal Method, right? The structure, this theoretical structure behind the method, is that you are so self-assured of who you are. You have such a clear sense of identity that no matter what kind of pressure comes from the outside world, you remain unshakable. It's a more passive, it's different from confidence. Self-esteem and confidence are different things in the Cardinal Method. That's why in the Crystals and Chakras meditation series, we have one crystal for confidence, one crystal for self-esteem, right? Those of you who are in the series know that. So when you connect your self-esteem, it's a state of being quietly knowing who you are and remaining unshakable to external pressure. You don't budge. You know, not only do you know your worth, but you stand by it. You affirm it just by being who you are, not by reacting, not by competing, just by knowing who you are. It's a higher self posture, right? We have some comments here on YouTube. Peace, lover. I have conciliation for children and property matters. Tomorrow, please keep your prayers for me. Sure, absolutely. I'm learning about self-worth less in the last few months. Yes. So self-worth is about knowing your value. Self-esteem is about knowing who you are. And knowing, it's this deep knowing within that you are unique and unshakable, and that only you have that specific personal power. Only you have that specific skill, that you are you and you can't be copied, and you should not be copying other people. You know, it's really about not falling prey to the temptation of following the herds, right? It has a little bit to do with authenticity. That's a throat chakra energy, authenticity, which is very related to personal power too, but it's another story. I want to focus tonight on self-esteem so that you understand how powerful your identity is. So when you know your worth and you feel worthy of the best of life, your energy travels up from the sacral chakra to the solar plexus, and you feel unshakable, and you feel divinely powerful. It's not powerful in a way that you can oppress others, that you're better than others. If you're in competition mode, you have no self-esteem. I really think it's important to make this clear to everybody. Competitive people have low self-esteem, not necessarily self-worth issues. They have self-esteem issues. Their solar plexus is imbalanced because they're in competition mode all the time. I need to be the best. I want to be the best. How dare so-and-so be good at this? That's my area. You know what I mean? Instead of cooperating, but when you cooperate, the energy has traveled even up, even higher up to the heart chakra, right? Cooperation is a heart chakra energy. Self-esteem is a stage of the energy ascension in which you are very connected to your individual sense of self, very aware of it, and that you do not negotiate who you are and you don't feel threatened by other people's power. I think that's the best definition of self-esteem, is to hold yourself true to your personal truth and not allow yourself to go into competition mode. This does not mean that you should ignore the market, for example, because the solar plexus has a lot to do with your professional life, right? And professional success. But you can observe this. The most successful people are the ones who believe in themselves, who trust themselves, who know their power. And remember, I said you need an intention, you need a belief, and you need action, right? If you don't believe that you have that power, no one can do this for you, right? Self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love, only you can do this for yourself. I tell a lot of my clients, you may come to 100 energy healing sessions. I can't do your job for you. Self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love, only you can do this for yourself, right? Your personal trainer cannot do your push-ups for you. It needs to come from you. There are certain things that only we can do for ourselves. When we realize this, we start taking action to create a better life. But taking action requires a belief. And the belief requires an intent. So if you don't have any clarity about who you are or where you're going, clarity first about your intent. What is it that you want from life? You need to get clarity on that. You may have an intention, but you need to believe that it's possible and that you're worthy. Because most people have obstacles with self-permission. They're like, very, very initial stage of the self-transformation process and changing life process. So if you don't believe you're worthy, there are many reasons why we have self-worth issues. It could be, as I said, things we've done in childhood that we think are bad, then we are guilty about it. It could be ancestral guilt, that we feel we have to compensate for our ancestors. So we feel individually unworthy because in our family there's a lot of karma. Or it could be from past lives. That requires individual investigation of your energy field. But just the awareness that you may feel unworthy, and that's one of the reasons why you play small and you sabotage your life and you have financial issues or professional success issues or relationship issues, that's already a huge step, right? It's a huge leap. But if you travel up to self-esteem, that means, okay, I'm worthy. So the competitive people don't have self-worth issues, but they have self-esteem issues because they're competing with others, right? So that needs to be observed, and that's an ego story. So the self-worth part is very connected to the inner child. Self-esteem has to do with your ego, how adult your ego is, how responsible your ego is, how healthy your ego is. Because a competitive ego is an unhealthy ego. A controlling ego is an unhealthy ego. So be very mindful of that. Pay close attention to where do you think your energy is predominant? Where do you think it's stuck? Is it self-worth, inner child? Is it a self-worth or an inner child story? Or is it an ego story that has to do with your self-esteem, right? In the book, Your Cardinal Connections, the 6th chapter is teaching you the inner child practice, which is a 10-minute practice that you can do every day, once a day. There is another practice that requires more dedication. So if the energy is traveling up, you will have the stamina and the energy to do this, which is the gratitude flow, which is designed to help you with your ego. That's chapter 7 of the book, Your Cardinal Connections. That is a 49-day it's a 49-day practice, but you will only work on your ego once a week for 7 minutes. And that is powerful too, because it means we're starting to become adults and taking charge of our lives. Our biological age does not necessarily portray our maturity, right? There are a lot of people who are 60, 70, 80 years old who behave like children. And again, the elderly tend, if they haven't developed a spiritual practice throughout their decades, they become childish. They become children again, right? But the more you develop a spiritual practice, the more you tap into the gift of old age, which is wisdom and lucidity. The reason why people lose their lucidity in old age has a lot to do with not working on their emotions. So then their emotions just build up and override them, and not having a spiritual life. I believe this. Okay. And also not working on your body, not taking care of your body will give you a hard time in old age. But our bodies are designed, nature intended our bodies to be healthy for as long as we live. And we are designed to live long years. We are designed as human beings. Nature intended human beings to live long, healthy lives, as long as we know how to maintain our emotional health, the health of our souls, and the health of our bodies. But because our emotions are so messed up, we don't sharpen our brains, we don't develop a spiritual life, and we don't take care of our bodies properly. So, and I believe a lot of this is cultural. Our culture just does bring so many distortions, right? And we don't take care of ourselves properly, period. But the good news is that in the 21st century, and especially after the pandemic, I truly believe that a lot of people are becoming more interested in their souls and in taking holistic care of themselves, taking care of their emotions, their brain power, their spirituality, and their souls, right? So understanding how the chakra system works and how the inner child and the ego works, those are two pillars of the cardinal method, the Hindu chakra system and the European philosophy, contemporary philosophy of European thought. It's awesome. We have a comment here. Robert is saying, interested in Tibetan Buddhism teaching, we typically stay in the Bardo for 49 days in the Bardo. Yes. So the cardinal method is multidisciplinary. So the 49-day period is inspired in Buddhist philosophy. It's a spiritual shift that we make with the gratitude flow, and it is inspired in the 49 days of the Bardo of Buddhism. We're being reborn into the higher self and the spirit when we do the gratitude flow. Because when we do the gratitude flow, our egos are taking charge of our lives. So what is the remedy for the ego? The higher self and spirituality. What is the remedy for the inner child? Becoming an adult. Your ego is your inner child's best friend. Your ego is your responsible aspect of the psyche. When the ego is controlling, it needs to bow down to the higher self, to your spiritual self. So we have a spiritual practice called the gratitude flow. So for 7 minutes, once a week for 7 weeks, you hold a specific crystal and you have the specific affirmations. In the book, Your Cardinal Connections, that's chapter 7 of the book, Your Cardinal Connections. And the chapter 5 is actually also inspired in Buddhism and Hinduism, which is grounded spirituality, right? As opposed to escapism. People who seek religions and spirituality as an escape mechanism to emotional pain. It's not going to work. If you need to work on your emotions, you need to work on your emotions with emotional technologies, with emotional systems, right? So do you see how the ascending spiral has a logic behind it? Self-worth, sacral chakra, inner child, traveling up to self-esteem, solar plexus, and the ego, traveling up to the heart. So when people have enough self-esteem, and this is so interesting to observe different people, because I know all kinds of people, I can really see them in this spectrum. People who have self-worth, have developed self-worth and have developed self-esteem travel up to the heart chakra in self-love mode. Not everybody does that. So it's not because you have self-esteem in the solar plexus that you have a sense of being that you necessarily love yourself. So some people are very self-assured. They have self-esteem. They are, sovereign in their personal power, but that doesn't mean they love themselves necessarily, or that they're able to love others with an open heart, an overflowing heart. The domains of the heart are even broader than the domains of the solar plexus. So because you have healthy self-esteem, it requires self-worth to develop self-esteem. And it requires self-esteem to develop genuine self-love. I've talked about this in prior live sessions on Instagram and YouTube. Why does the law of attraction work for some people and not for others? Because some people know the law of attraction theoretically, right? But if they don't have enough self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love, they don't believe that they can attract what they want. So remember, you need an intent, you need a belief, and you need an action. The belief piece requires emotional structure, self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love. So the law of attraction works beautifully to a lot of people who have been able to manifest their abundance because they love themselves enough to believe that they are worthy, that they are powerful, and that they are loving. So the law of attraction is directly connected to universal love. Universal love starts in your heart when it comes to your life. So if you do not love yourself enough, you may be very aware of your personal power and self-esteem, but self-love is a different story because it doesn't necessarily just have to do with a state of being. It has to do with transcending your sense of individuality and merging with your higher self, which is a sacred particle of higher light that every human being has. So when you connect to your self-love, you immediately connect to your higher self and to the higher self of other people. Why do we have messed up emotional relationships? Because you may love others without loving yourself because you're not loving on a higher self connection. It's not your higher self loving the higher self of the other person. That's why relationships do not necessarily equal love. Because you can love someone from an inner child perspective. It's what we call immature love. We talked about this in our last live session, right? You can love others in an immature way. When you love others in a mature level, in a mature way, that's self-love that allows you to love others in a mature way. Often people are in love relationships in an immature inner child connection with maybe, I don't know, someone who's also in inner child mode or could be in ego mode. Asymmetric relationships tend to be an inner child person with an ego person. So self-love, when the energy travels up to the heart, means that you're willing to create connection with the world on a spiritual level beyond your humanity. It is human, but it's also divine. The heart chakra is a hybrid chakra. It's both human and divine. Throat, third eye, and crown, and also the thymus chakra. We have we include the thymus chakra in the cardinal method. We have an 8 chakra system. But I am not going to talk about the thymus chakra in this live session because it would be, I would digress. So the divine chakras are throat, third eye, and crown. The human chakras are solar plexus, sacral chakra, and root. And the heart is both human and divine. So self-love is about acknowledging your divinity. It's about acknowledging transcendence from humanity. That's why, for example, there are a lot of people who have high self-esteem, but if they don't surrender to spirituality and don't believe in anything beyond humanity, the human experience, the energy doesn't travel up to the heart. They may have a very healthy relationship with someone else on an ego level, but if the energy doesn't travel up to the heart, it's because this person is unwilling to transcend the human experience and to have a spiritual experience. So self-love, in my opinion, this is my concept of self-love, okay, in the cardinal method. I said you don't have to agree with everything that I say. I'm just adding information and bringing new ideas to the table so we can talk about it and maybe even change our minds if necessary. I am not attached to ideas at all. So this is the current stage of my reflections, right, that I want to bring to you and contribute to the debate here and bring some food for thought for everybody who follows us. But I truly believe that the difference between self-esteem and self-love have to do with self-love being focused on the higher self and self-esteem being an awareness of your present moment humanity, your present moment human identity. Self-love, it goes beyond, it's timeless. It goes beyond who you are right now in the present moment. And I don't think it's one is better or worse than the other. We need all three in our human experience. We need self-worth, we need self-esteem, the sense of individuality of who we are right now in the present moment. And we need self-love, which transcends the present moment. It's a timeless inner individual reality. It's who you've always been, who you are now, and who you will be forever, right? I believe self-esteem is very present moment oriented. Who you are right now in the present moment. It requires an expanded mind that goes beyond the sacral chakra and the self-worth piece. Is that making sense? So I'm bringing a discussion here on a very philosophical level because I believe that the more we enrich our concepts of our existence on a theoretical level, high quality basic concepts expand our consciousness and change our mindset and expand our lives. So the more you know yourself and the more you are exposed to high quality concepts and theory, the more you sharpen your brain and the more meaningful your life is, the more you can create meaningful relationships, not only with other people, but with the world. Life just has a more vibrant awesomeness to it, right? When we expand our consciousness, and we do that with high quality concepts. So what we're doing here is diving deep into three concepts so that we can expand our brain power and our consciousness levels. That's the goal of this specific live session. And the last thing I want to bring to you, just to finish up and wrap this up, it doesn't feel like an hour has passed by, but it has, is that what can you do to develop these three individual forces: self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love? I've said this from the beginning, right? You need an intent. You need to have the intention. I want to develop self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love. Or maybe one of the three, or maybe two of the three. You know what you want. You need to know what you want. I can't do this for you, but just focus on what you want in your intent. And you need to believe it's possible. And your belief has everything to do with your self-worth. Belief and self-worth walk hand in hand. There's a question or a remark here. Who is saying, for this, I love these live sessions. I feel my brain's being sharpened so deeply. I love it. And I love it that you've dove into your self-connection. You're in A Course in Human Nature. You're in the Crystals and Chakras meditation series, right, Hui? So you really do your part. You're so dedicated, and I love to see you here. And you are also in the live sessions of Instagram and YouTube. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm so honored. So what do you need to do to develop the three or one of the three? The intention to develop them, the belief that it's possible, and the belief that you are worthy. Self-worth is the structure of it all. It's the foundation of self-esteem and self-love. So belief is important. Believe you're worthy of the changes that you want to create. Believe that you're worthy of the life that you want to create for yourself, that you want to manifest, right? Belief and manifestation walk hand in hand. Belief has everything to do with your levels of self-worth. So you need to go deep into the sacral chakra level for this. Also, attention. because we tend to be very distracted. The human experience is very much about distractions. So know who you are in the present moment, know what you want, and focus on that, and don't get distracted. So attention. That's why I so recommend we write down our experiences daily. Even if it's an affirmation, have a diary and write down your experiences every single day. It doesn't have to be a Bible every day. It could be just a single affirmation, but just make sure you write something down about your day every day, because that's a practice to keep your attention, your focus, right? It's a way to honor attention. And the fourth piece is take action. Do what you need to do to change your inner world so that the external world responds accordingly, and be patient about it, because the more you take action, the more the external world starts to shift. But it's so common for us to underestimate what we can do in a day, and underestimate what can happen in a whole year, right? We want to do everything really fast and things to happen really fast for us. But if you work daily, you will see a huge shift in a whole year. All right? So every day you create your structural reality. And when you look back, if you work every day on yourself, in a year, you will have taken a quantum leap. I am absolutely sure of this. If you dedicate yourself, you will create the shifts. So what do you do about self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love to develop these three forces that you have within? Have the intention to do that. Have the belief that you are worthy. Work on your self-worth when it comes to your beliefs. Pay attention to it daily. And water this little plant every day, and it will become a beautiful tree. And take action every day with your focus and your attention as, as your resources for your actions. Don't take random action all over the place with 7 different targets. Have one target and take inspired action towards that goal. Stop distracting yourself. And really believe that you are so worthy of this and that you can really change your life. It requires self-connection. It requires effort, but it's not painful effort. It's an effort of self-love, of self-esteem, and of self-worth. Okay? So thank you so much for being here. I love you all. I'm so, so, so honored to be able to share this time with you in these live sessions. I know that most people watch the recordings. So thank you for watching the recordings, for commenting and asking questions, especially for liking this video. Please like it. And please share it with people you know and love so that we can create a community of like-minded people who share the same vocabulary, who want to expand, who want to grow, and to contribute to the world. Thank you so much, beautiful people. It's been wonderful as always. And I will see you guys soon. Love you all. Much love to everyone. Bye-bye.